Good morning, Yorkshire Classic Cars Limited fans, and welcome to what is the first proper sunny day we've had this year, I think. Colder than the north face of the Eiger, but lovely weather, which is good because I'm going to be outside in it in a second and you're coming with me. Try to put a warm jacket on, it is cold out there. We're continuing on with the Stag, the mk1 Stag that I've started on. Okay, last time we were here, if you've seen the first video, just watch that again. We started on the door, the hinges are on their way for the door supplied by the customer, which is in very, very good, solid condition. You can see it's had a small repair here, but it's been done well and the door fits pretty well, I think. I've taken off the door on the passenger side, and as I tried to explain to you before, you can see this is the thickness that you would expect the door to be, but as you go down it, you can see it gets thicker and thicker, and it's difficult to see because it's like an optical illusion. But what that means is it's full of filler. Now, when they're full of filler, that doesn't always necessarily mean that the door is absolutely unusable and rotten and so forth. It might be a tiny little hole and somebody's knocked it in, filled it up, and then added lashings and lashings of filler to try and blend it in because they weren't very good at it or whatever. Or they've tried to build the door out to match the sill, or, you know, you never really do know. So it isn't necessarily a rotten door. However, the door I have, I took the doors off the white Stag complete. The driver's door is poor. The passenger door looks very, very good, but it does have a film of seal around the inside, which is always a little bit of a concern. So what I'm going to do is, because it's nice and straight, it's had a little bit of a trim done for a speaker or something like that at some time, but it looks pretty blooming good door, to be fair. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you outside and we'll have a look at that door. So this is the door out here. I go quiet when I'm at it because I get a little bit embarrassed that I'm recording. I don't know why, really, but I do. As you can see, round here it's been sealed up. I don't know why. The skin seems very original. If I go down like that, you can see that it's nice and thin there. I described it as thin in the first video, but what that means is it's not got a big sort of cake of filler on it. There are some specks of rust here and there, but nothing really major. Now I'm hoping when I remove all that, this is just something somebody's done to try and cover some surface rust. But until I take that out, we'll never really know. So the areas that we're most concerned about, I'm not really worried about up here. These areas don't tend to rot out particularly. So I'm going to clean these corners all down the bottom of the door and here. Okay, now this feels solid, it feels good, so we don't know. It doesn't, this looks a bit like it could be filler, but I don't know yet until we start. That hole isn't rusted out, which is a good sign. So it might just be been a preventative measure. They've done it all the way around, so that's good because obviously this section can rust, but it's less likely than down here. And then what I'm going to do is the underside on the bottom edge to see what that's like also. So to do that, I'm going to use a wire wheel. Okay, so wire wheel in my angle grinder. Believe it or not, that angle grinder is about 4 weeks old. Not a flat disc because that removes too much metal. And probably some of these, which I've explained before, they're like a carbide disc, and they come from, I think I get them from Amazon, usually. They're nothing spectacular, but they work really, really well. I've bought more expensive ones, and these work better than the more expensive ones. The word of caution with these is they do build heat up in the panel quite rapidly, so you need to be aware of that, because obviously heat in the panel is what makes it warp. Now I'm doing this outside, obviously, for dust reasons. You can see it's a lovely sunny day. I've moved my car back. Mealworms on the floor for the robin, but it won't come down while I'm doing this, so we're not too worried about that. So what I'm going to do is set you up and go to work on that. Okie dokie. this is attempt number 3. I've actually videoed this 3 times outside, but we have some bulk lorries that park up next door, trucks, if you're watching this from America. And the minute I start doing my video piece, he fires it up and does something with hydraulics and sort of moves around. He's only working, but it's just ironic that every time I do it. As you can see, and I'll record this yet again, this is why I wear a mask and do things like this outside. As you can see by how I'm dressed, this is why I always look dishevelled and like I'm homeless. But anyway, what I'll draw your attention to are the 2 doors, one from the Stag originally and one from the white Stag. Now then, this is a metaphor for my entire life. I literally can't win an argument, and this is just about an example of that. So this is the original purple Stag door, maroon Stag door, purple, maroon, whatever it is, magenta, tint magenta. And as you can see, it's pretty rotten. About an inch up all the way across there. It's very thin, very feathery. Try to ignore the dust that's stuck to it. However, the bottom of the door, the actual door there, the frame is really, really good, like brand new actually. I haven't sanded it all off, but it is super solid, absolutely as solid as a rock. This is the door off the white Stag. As you can see, the door skin, the outer skin, is like brand new. It is really, really good. There's a few marks in it here and there, and a little bit of pock mark in here from microblistering. But other than that, really, really good. Strong as an ox. However, the door bottom, when I've started sanding it off, is literally rotten. Okay, it's had some really shoddy repair work done in there. Let me just lay it down. It is really poor. Okay, so it's had some sections welded in there poorly, and they are bad. So the irony being that the maroon door is good on the inside, but shocking on the outside. The white door is shocking on the inside, but great on the outside, which is kind of typical of my entire life. Excuse me, wiping the dust off my nose. That's kind of typical of my entire life. Can't win an argument, clearly. I think what I'm probably going to do is continue cleaning the maroon door, the original door off the car. The thickness here is paint. Okay, so the bottom thickness, I'm sort of touching the door and gesticulating towards it, but pointing at my face. The paint here, it's hard to see on the video. I don't think you'll be able to make it out, but I tried to retain some of the layers. So this top layer isn't actually that bad. That's quite thick. There's a thin layer of filler, and the original paint here is lovely and thin. That's the original paint. When you get beyond that, into here and into that second coat there, that is really thick. I mean, it's really thick. I would estimate around 1/8 of an inch, maybe 3.2 mil, something like that. So it's really, really thick on there. This thickness here, where my thumb is where the metal has rusted inside along the edge of the door, the frame of the door, and popped out and expanded. As metal rusts, it expands, obviously, and it opens it all out and makes it thick. If you get to about here where it hasn't done it, it's really tight and as it should be there. So I think what I'm probably going to do, once the welder is out for the sills, is I will start and repair this door. Although it looks worse, the frame is better, and the frame is what you line up to, so that's fine. I'm going to clean it all back inside and then repair a section at a time. So what I'll do is I'll probably do a corner section to about here, and then I'll probably do a centre section or a back section. I aren't actually sure if repair sections are available for these doors. I don't want to buy a full skin because they are very expensive, and I don't particularly want to take the whole skin off because, as you can see, the rust is very localised just to that bottom inch. That is not a difficult thing to repair, actually. The fact is I'd like to do it in one piece pretty much. That would make a better repair. So if I can buy a piece to go on there, I might just do that. Right, so to follow on from what I was saying yesterday about the doors for the maroon Stag. Obviously, you can't cut the bottom off a good door to put on a bad door and blah, blah, blah. You probably could, but it wouldn't be worth it. So what I've decided to do is, because the frame is exceedingly good on this door, or as far as I can see, what I can see certainly does look absolutely solid. I've taken the liberty of stripping it down. See the handle and that, the lock is still in, just because I was struggling with the screws, actually. They just need the impact wrench on them. But the actual door is very, very good, and I've stripped her right down. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to cut off this bottom section of door here, just above the rust. So probably about an inch, inch and a quarter here, inch and a quarter here. You can see where the rust is. There's a little bit there that might just need attention. And so what I'm going to do first is scribe a nice straight line and mark it right across there. In fact, I may actually clean back the paint just a little modicum further, not because I need to, just make it easier and cleaner to work on. You'll find if you do a job like this, the best thing to do is clean the paint back first and then come back to it, okay? It's going to be painted anyway, so stripping it off doesn't matter. But it just makes it easier. If you cut that edge, it's all wibbly wobbly, and then you damage it when you try to clean the paint off. So that's so what you're going to see me do now, I want a nice straight edge across the bottom of here, so I can put, I'm going to make my own door bottom. Okay, you can buy a door skin, but it seems a shame to buy a full door skin just to chop 1.5 inches off the bottom. So what I'm going to do, and I've been thinking about this, the best way of doing this is just to put that piece of flat bar across the bottom. It's just a strip of flat bar. A piece of wood does it, but when you're cutting, you tend to find the wood gets deformed from shape. So I'm going to make sure I'm well into the area there. There's a little corner piece there, and I'm going to cut straight across. In fact, actually, I'm going to come down a little there, just above that mark. Just gently put that on with a pair of mole grips. There. And I'm going to keep it roughly square on this side, which should just making the door skin repair section a little easier. It looks like the door bottom curves up there, but actually what's happening is the door comes out in the middle. You can see the panel bends up. Hey, Olivia, all right? So that's just held in place so I can cut across the bottom of there. So just whip across that with the cutting disc. And then what I'm going to do is angle grind down the edges with a flap disc just to take those edges off. So there we go. What I've done is I cut all the way through the edge of the frame here. Okay, oops, sorry. All the way through the edge of the frame here to release the door skin. Same on this end here, so you can see that went through because obviously I can't get to grind up the back. And then I've popped that off. So what I did was grind down the edge here until I could see 3 pieces of metal appear and peel that off. Same on the other end, and then on the bottom all I did was weaken it so I could open out the seam thus. As you can see, that's the metal that's expanded inside and has become extraneous to the door bottom and swelled it all out. There's no sealer in there, that is just the metal that's rusted and popped. It's pretty rough down here, to be quite honest with you. This edge is worse than I expected. However, I will say that's quite an easy part to repair. It is just a strip on the edge, and the edge is good, actually, I think. So, probably get away with that. But what I'm going to do now is just clean that up gently with a wire wheel. I'll try and get this foam out. You can see the nice straight line I cut with the flat bar. And yes, that is razor sharp and cutting me to death. So what I'm going to do is I'll just wire wheel that up and we'll see what condition it's in and whether it's worth saving from this point forward. I think it should be, but we'll have a go. So as you can see now, yeah, it's fairly peppered, is that, unfortunately. I can repair it, obviously. But it is quite rough down the bottom of this section in the middle, good. There's approximately 6 inches there. That's almost solid. That's as it should be. This is fairly peppered. That has happened entirely And I do mean this because they've filled up the outside of the door. If they'd repaired it properly and sealed it, it would never have happened. Sorry, I'm desperate to get this piece of blooming foam out of there before it bursts into flames. It's felt, not foam, but it will burst into flames at some point. So, yeah, so what I'm going to do here is, you can see I've cut here and it's solid there at the end. There, look, I'll zoom in a little bit. Sorry, I've taken you off the gimbal. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to repair this section here first. So probably about to here. Sorry, terrible at this. I'm looking where my finger is rather than through the camera. So I'm going to repair it to about here first on each end. And then a strip across the middle. It is a straight edge, there or thereabouts. It's a little bit bent, so it's curving a tiny bit. But it is a straight bottom to the door. So as long as I keep those ends correct, so I will make a piece, basically to break this down, I'll make a piece on each end that matches to this, and cut that out a little section at a time, and then I'll make a piece all the way down the middle. Rather than making a full piece, cutting all that out, then welding it in, it is important and imperative when you do jobs like this that you just make a little section at a time. And then I can put that in, make sure it's matched angle and size and everything, because obviously the new skin is going to wrap around that. So that needs to fit absolutely perfectly. Luckily, this piece in the middle is absolutely bang on. So I can use that to align everything to it. It's straight, it's strong, and it's tough there, which is really fortunate. And then what I'll do is I'll cut a piece of steel, mark it, bend it, swage it, and make it into a door bottom. So a little more time consuming than we expected. However, the chances of getting a good second-hand or new door is, well, near impossible. So this is what we're stuck with. But yeah, so off we go. I'll make those pieces and then I'll weld them into these corners first. So I've stood the door up. This here is a tiny little rust bleb there, but I can fill that with weld. That's no problem at all. It'll weld up. The metal around it is solid, even though that's a little rust hole. I've cut, it's going to be quite difficult to see for you on the camera, but I've cut right into the edge of that door. So this is flat to the bottom of the door, and where that radius is, and that's important because that's going to help me with the weld. And there you can see the radius there, as that used to curve out and then back in again. I can't make that piece neatly in one section. Oh, well, I can, but it's easy to do it like this, as it is here. I've cleaned it up with the wire wheel to make sure this metal is not only solid, because obviously I'm not going to start this job if it just becomes a disaster. There's just a waste of time. And I've cut this section of steel roughly just to go in there, okay? Now I'm going to leave this oversize initially, and you'll see why afterwards, but as ever, I'm going to cut that size and shape afterwards. It will need to be angled into about this sort of angle, okay? But that should line up then, as you can see there, that lines up. Now I'm going to mark that with a scribe. I'm not going to video it. I'm just going to mark it and cut it and then start to weld that in, okay? Purely because I just don't have time to faff about videoing it. I'm sorry. And secondly, you won't be able to see it, what I'm doing anyway. So as you can see, you should be able to see the radii in the corner there where that was folded originally. I'm going to try and retain that with the weld. So basically the weld I do down there is going to fill that radii. And then what I can do is I can just grind that back to a nice curved, sorry, I'm gesticulating with the phone. I can curve that with a nice curved radius. But yeah, we need about that angle, which should then line up to all this sort of stuff nice and neatly. I am going to clamp that just here where my thumb is, and here probably, just before I mark it, and I'll scribe that rather than using a pen or anything, because it gives you a much more accurate line to cut. And I'll be cutting that out then, the inside part with tin snips. You'll often see people do a repair like this and they just leave that bit hanging about in the bottom there. If you're going to do it right, for the 10 minutes extra work or 20 minutes extra work makes a far superior job. So that's what I'm going to do there. So I'm going to stop you there and pull you in a little bit so you can have a look at what I'm doing. Mainly because I'm just really proud of that beautiful welding. You know, MIG light TIG. I know it's not light TIG welding, but it's pretty close. I've made the world's scabbiest weld here. I'd like to make no apologies for that, but I'm going to have to, I'm afraid. And I've just noticed there's a pinhole there, which I'll need to weld up. But anyway, I think. What's basically happening is when I had the steel on and the clamps, it's too heavy and it's pulling the whole door downwards. So I've chosen to weld this section, which I can clamp to the original piece I've put in here. And this piece here, which is good and strong and in the right place, but I don't want it to move that, because if it moves that, I've lost all my register and my datum. So what I'm going to try and do is find probably a largest piece of box section that will go fully a length the back of the door, which is probably what I should have done in the first place. This is only very lightly tacked here and here, so that can come off. But I think this is good to here. I think I just cut a little wrong with the angle grinder there, but I mean, I can weld that up, it's no biggie. You can probably see back there, tiny little hole there, that's the seam where I just showed you the world's messiest weld. And here's where I haven't welded yet, but you can see the line has just ever so slightly gone off and it's just slightly coming in that way. So I just need to adjust that before I go any further, because obviously once you've welded it up, it's too late. Trying to fix the shoes once you've made them is terribly difficult. And the door should be absolutely straight. It doesn't want any curvature in it, or very minimal curvature. Right, so I'll do that. So yeah, I've adjusted that. What I've done is used a bit of common sense. I've put the heavy clamps where it's strong and the lighter clamps where it's not as strong. So, and I've not obviously clamped this together, and as you can see, the angle is actually bang on. So it isn't as wrong as I thought it was. It was all just moving a bit. So once you've cut these sections out, the whole door can flex a little. You've got that little bit of, if I'd show you, that bit of flexure in it, and I don't want that. I want this to be neat and tidy and correct. But if you look down the shape of the door now, that looks really very close, I think. It's difficult for you to see on the camera, but it's pretty blooming good. So I can straighten it a little afterwards if I have to, but I really, like I said, I'd rather it be right in the first place. So yeah, pretty pleased with that. Still clamped to here, I've welded to here. The bar is actually, the tube is actually a little taller now, because there's a bit of a knobbly weld gone through the back of there. But yeah, this is pretty good. That still lines up with this, I know that, because I clamped it to it when I did it. So yeah, just need to weld that now and grind it back. Off I go. Oakley dokley. Right, so what you can see here, I've clamped the flat bar that I've been using to cut. This side's a bit chewed up now, but that side is nice and smooth still. And what I've done is I've clamped it so it's pretty much level at the end, and then it just slightly curves in about 1 millimetre in the end, in the middle, and then back down at the end. Oops, excuse me. Pick my steel roll up. And I've clamped that on at each end with a pair of mould grips to hold it nice and tight down. You'll see there is a slight curvature in the door. It's very minor, the curvature in a Stag door, but anywho. And then this piece of steel, I've cut off that section over there, and I didn't film that. And quite honestly, unless I was doing a comedy routine, you wouldn't want to see it. Yeah. But I've done that, so it's got a really nice, smooth, straight edge here. So I don't have to sort of knock that about. Now, there are some ripples in this piece of steel already, unfortunately, but hopefully they'll pull in as I weld it on. So what I'm going to do now is turn it up the other way. That's clamped on, obviously, with these grips and these. I'm never very confident in these. They're all right for little temporary jobs, but they're not strong, but then they don't damage things either, so they have the uses. I'm going to try and turn it over now, so it's got bottom up again, as it was before. Oh, missus. And scribe around the edge, or pencil around the edge, so then I know where to fold for my skin return on the edges. So that's what I'm going to do next. So, hoping you can see what I'm showing you. There's a repair section I've made, or the door bottom, basically. What I did was, This is the super straight edge I had clamped upside down like that against the flat bar. And then what I've done is I've drawn with a pencil all the way around. Now, I did a pencil on purpose to allow a little bit of extra thickness for the curve in the metal. Now, if this lip is a teensy tiny little bit more narrow than the original Stag one, we're only talking probably 30 seconds, maybe a 16th of an inch tops. Nobody's ever going to know, and it's not going to make any difference. So I aren't too concerned about that. These corners had to be absolutely right, of course, because they have to line up with the door edges, and hopefully, all being well, they are. I haven't actually checked them yet. I just need to cut that corner off. So obviously with the folding process, it's ended up, so it's stuck up at a point there. So I'll just ease that off. And I will have to trim a section off here because I want to thin down about 2 inches there at each end to line up perfectly with the door. So all being allowed, hopefully that'll fit fairly well to there. Now, it is a little bit like trying to fit a sock on a chicken's lip at this point, purely because the skin is loose to the door, so it's flippity-floppity. This has obviously arced a little bit, because as you bend that lip over, you stretch the metal, and that gives it a curve, which I've tried to straighten back out. It actually needs to go the opposite way, and obviously you don't want to slit it. That's just... if I zoom in a little bit, if you just take your cross there, you can see now that that fits reasonably well. The main concern is this end here. Okay, so I can get that into there. Oops, it's jumped off, sorry about that. This fits nicely against the bottom edge there. It is sat high, hence why there's that little gap there in the middle, because it's not sat down to there properly yet. So the next job, as you can see, this end lines up lovely. Which is what I was trying to show you there. Hopefully you can see it. So the next job now is to trim the ends so that there's a butt joint on about the last sort of inch to 2 inches. I'd like to go on that. And then what I need to do is start and stitch it to there. Obviously I'm going to adjust, once I've got it right on the ends, I won't need to worry about this flat bar anymore, because it will only sit down as low as the door bottom. And then I will obviously rivet it round. I need them welded together first for any distortion to go out then, basically. But I won't be grinding it back until afterwards. Okie dokie. Basically, sorry, I haven't put the microphone on for this, but basically now I have to keep doing a spot of weld and then letting it cool. So what I try to do is a bit of literally anything else. So I usually end up clearing stuff up. I want that to be stone cold before I touch it. You'll have noticed there that I did put a little tiny run of weld on each end, only on the end near the frame. So it's not going to do any harm there. I shouldn't really, but it just ties it together nice and neatly. You'll have seen me wondering about, I'll have cut loads of it out because couldn't find me steel rule and stuff. Sorry, I'm sniffling again because the cold is getting really cold. We're into the minuses and it's you know, Baltic. But I just wanted to check the shape of the door. My door, I made this very straight, and I just wanted to check on the shape of the other door, the driver's door, that fits quite nicely. The top is curved, the bottom is reasonably straight with just a very light curve end to end, so probably about sort of 30 seconds each end, which is exactly what that is. I know they can build a little filler on it should they need to shape it a little. Obviously I've welded it, I've changed the shape, I've repaired it, so it's going to need a bit of welding. The other thing you'll notice that I've done is I painted inside the repair section I'm putting on, the skin section I've made, and I also painted inside and outside of the frame. Now, it will keep bursting into flames, and it's difficult to avoid that. And I appreciate you're going to struggle to see that now because the light's fading a little, but that's just to make sure there's as much paint and protection as I can get in there, basically. There's not much else I can do. I welded that pinhole up as well. But yeah, so that's going reasonably well so far. The ends are clamped down tight. I've overcut a little here, but that doesn't matter. I can weld that up anyway, so that'll be welded when it's done. This side, I've undercut a little tiny bit. I've obviously had to move it down a bit. But again, I can weld that up, and I will be welding these once they're rolled round. If I need to just put a tiny run of weld down the edge or anything, or ground it back a little bit just to make it flush fit, I can. But the fit does look very, very close there to me. I'm hoping you can see that accurately. Really, I'd like this door now upside down, so the other way up. Just so as I can get to weld it easier and neater. Now it's held together and I've got a few clamps on it just holding it in position. I'm quite happy to do that. So what I'll do is I'll record a little bit of me welding it, but there's no point leaving the camera on for 6 hours. And I'll come back and show you once it's all done. So I'm going to draw this video to a close then, basically because it's getting really late and there's a lady lives on the site in the house, so I'm going to stop. But there we go, there's the repair section in. I appreciate the weld looks a bit knobbly down here. That's unfortunate, but it's kind of unavoidable when you do the spot, leave it 10 minutes, spot sort of job. You get spots everywhere and that's what happens. It's a lot smoother on the ends where I've butt welded it, obviously. There's a little bit of a ripple in there, but the door was a little bit out of shape, you see, with expansion. So I haven't ground right to the corners yet. Right to the corners yet, because I want to weld those up on the back. And they need a little bit more finessing yet. There's when I've made the overlap, I've made it a little bit too big, so it's not sitting quite flush. You should have seen me hammering and dollering this down. It needs a little bit more work yet. I've gone a little bit concave here, somewhere there, but I'll bring that out as I'm tapping it down flush. It's gone pretty much. If I just set you down a second. This is the end here. I'm hoping you can see it. It's just overlapping ever so slightly there. So what I'll just probably do is cut that with the angle grinder just to make that, and then I'll weld right across here. This has gone nice and flush and flat in the corners. This needs a little bit more work yet. As this does, this corner, I'm going to weld this corner up and here. and across here, but again, that's just sat up ever so slightly in that corner, so I just need to take a little tiny bit off that first. This needs a little bit more work. I've done this corner, this is all lovely, but I need to hammer and dolly it upside down. Quite honestly, the head keeps falling off my dolly, hammer, my planishing hammer, so it's it's getting a bit difficult. This was a little bit wibbly wobbly here because that's quite a large section of flat steel, so it was moving a little bit. So if I show you down the door, it's just run out a little bit. I think you can probably see that. But I just need to just work it a little bit more now. I can't be banging in and crashing at this time of night. It's quite late. And then, as I say, once I've welded these up, I'll grind those back. I think that just needs to come in a tiny weeny bit. But I can sort of massage that. And then it's just test it on the car, really, and see how she fits. This end's a lot better. It hadn't expanded at this end as bad, so the shape's significantly better here and here. It's a little bit undercut, I think, here, so I might just run a weld down there and just grind that back, just to make that the right shape. But I'll try it against the car and we'll see how it goes, because sometimes it's too big there in the first place, so you never know really. I'll work this a little bit more with the grinder disc, but as I say, it's getting quite late, quite noisy. But overall, pretty reasonable repair, I think. It's taken a long time, but it's made a nice solid door bottom. The rest of the door is good. It's the original door off the car, and it should be good to go as long as the shape is close now. I mean, obviously it's going to need a smear of filler on it here. You know, you can't get away with not filling it, even if you butt weld them. So, yeah, pretty pleased with that overall. So, thank you for joining in that. This has probably no doubt ended up a long video because I've been videoing all day. Thank you for watching. Please consider liking and subscribing if you've enjoyed it. You may have learnt something, you may not. You might learn how not to do it, who knows. But I hope you like it. This is going to be a series. Obviously, the next job is to fit the doors and adjust them, which I'm going to show you that. That'll probably be a short video. And then I'm going to attack this sill on this side and get that ready. Okay, thanks for joining. Bye-bye.